All right, welcome back. Today we have with us Dillon Mckeon. He is the associate pastor at Levittown Baptist Church. You're seeing this as a cut scene because we did the entire podcast and forgot to announce who he was. So, yes, this is Dillon Mckeon, and really blessed to have him on with us today. We're going to be talking about ministry as his first year in full-time ministry alongside me over at Levittown Baptist, and you're going to enjoy it.
Thanks, guys. What an honor.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Jill.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should talk to Dillon a little bit, at least about being 1 year into ministry at Levittown Baptist, having come out of the secular workforce as a school teacher, and some of the transition. What was that like? What was the process? What was the expectation? How has that expectation been met or not met? What does it look like to proclaim and warn and teach everyone with all wisdom, so that you might present everyone mature in Christ? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well,
So let's start with the beginning. Let's start with the
the
process.
first adjustments are realizing that like your weekend is not your weekend.
That's
So
right.
for like 15 years, Saturdays and Sundays, oh, that's my weekend. No, it's not.
Yeah. Very different shift.
Sure. Schedule wise, yeah.
I think 5 years ago when we were doing Feed My Sheep, the original saga, did you ever find out a number? Did we ever find out a number about how many episodes there were? Like 45, 50, something like that.
There's more than I thought.
There was quite a few. And then everybody that was interviewed was a pastor, except you. You were the only person that was interviewed on the original show. And the question was originally about you as a music leader, because that's what you did at your church at the time.
Yeah.
To ask, what do we do as far as music goes during COVID? Like, how do we do that while we're all stuck at home? So you were the original non-pastor guest, and now you are a guest as a pastor.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's like some foreshadowing going on. Not intentional.
Were you like incepting things in my brain and planting seeds that I don't even know what's going on?
Yeah, a little trail all the way back. Yeah, but what was that process like? There was a shift in your life where you went from being full-time as an educator to being full-time on staff at a church. What was that whole
You want me
thing?
to tell the story?
Sure.
Yeah. So I sort of lost a little bit of my taste for education, public education. I could have continued it for the rest of my life, but about 3 years ago, felt a pull and a call and a greater desire to be an overseer and to shepherd souls. But I never saw myself as the full-time guy. I thought I would be like a lay leader, which is great, which is also a pastor. But I had a friend who called me and he was just like, "Hey, I've got this real estate thing going on in Charlotte. Why don't you come down?" And so I flew down there, interviewed a little bit, and then it seemed like the Lord was just opening all these doors. So I called all the men I knew who had influence in my life. I was like, "Here's my situation. What do you think? Give me counsel." And everyone was like, "Yeah, it looks like the Lord's opening doors. I found a good church down there. Was gonna be trained, perhaps." And the only person that like poo-pooed it, they didn't poo-poo it, but the only person that was just like, "Hey, consider these things, like pump the brakes a little bit and consider these things," was Caleb. And it was good counsel. And then he was like, "Hey, if that thing in Charlotte doesn't work out, why don't you give me a call?" And so I didn't know what that meant. We hung up the phone. I texted him, and he didn't text me back. And well, I think he was just being really patient and wise. And then
is that actually what it was?
Sort of. I will. There was a reason why. Yeah, which I can explain.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And so when this business leader was sending me the contract, he was on the phone with me, and then I got a call from Caleb at the same moment. Caleb said, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but let's go into ministry together. We'd like to bring you on board at Levittown." And I was just like, my first response was anger, because I was like, "Caleb, I like 2 weeks ago, I told you, like, give me all the counsel." And but my next response was like, in my heart, I was like, I know this is a good way to spend my life. So over the next week, I was praying about this. Like, should we move? We had our hearts set on that, or should we stay? What does this mean, Lord? Asked men for counsel, and the person who called me an hour later was my pastor, Peter Nicotra, and he said, and I wasn't sure how he would react to all this, and I said, Lord, let me just trust the Lord. And I picked up the phone. He goes, brother, this is how the Lord works. And his story is wild too. He basically, the day that he was laid off from advertising for 2 years, the day that he accepted an associate pastor position at North Shore, he received like a 6-figure salary in the 90s, like a 6-figure salary, or maybe early 2000s, 6-figure salary in advertising. He was like, I already committed myself to the Lord. So that was like, he retold me that story, and I was like, okay, let me consider these things. I spent a vacation weekend with Harry Fujiwara, and we would do work in the morning, and I would like turn to him and ask him a question, and he'd answer, and we would do like 30 more minutes of work, and I would turn to him and ask him a question. One of the things that he highlighted was from Matthew 19, whoever leaves houses or lands for my name's sake, I will give him tenfold. And I was literally planning on building houses for my family and building up a business for myself down there. And I thought, I'd rather have it in glory. I'd rather have eternal rewards and heavenly rewards. So all these things kind of added up, and it made me it convinced me that ministry was a good move for us. And a year later, I still absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly in many ways.
Amen. So I didn't respond to him. I didn't call
Yeah,
him
he
back,
wasn't
because I had touched base with your former pastor Peter Nicotra a couple of years prior, and just kind of it just inquired, what about maybe if I hired Dillon? And at the time, it was like, we really need him. Please don't ask him. I think this is not the right timing for it. And I just said, okay. And I committed myself to not saying anything until Dillon had committed to leave.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I found out that he was committed to leaving, he said, well, yeah, we're planning to go down to North Carolina. He gave us the timeline. And I said, well, Dillon, what if you don't do that? And instead you come and work at Levittown Baptist. And that was the beginning of really fruitful time of ministry over the last year. I think there's been a lot that has been accomplished where, especially from my end, I was able to be freed up to do so much of what I need to do, but also so many things that were not being done well. Dillon just has such a different gifting than I do in some of these ways, and is so great with discipleship and is so involved with the people that it just has elevated the ministry. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. I mean, you were going from teaching in public education to now teaching in the church and teaching the Word of God.
Yeah.
What are some of the shifts there? What's some of the differences?
Well, what you're teaching is eternal and everlasting. The grass, and the flower fades, but the word of God stands forever. And so I love history. You love history. You probably love history.
What?
But and as much in the public school system, at least, as much as I would really try not to teach a more slanted version, and I got into some trouble for that, but I was trying to be wise as a serpent. But now it's like, this is of eternal value. This changes people's lives. Like, education was cool because I always told myself, like, I'm giving kids opportunities, which is true. But this is mountains and molehills here. Yeah, this is changing people's minds and equipping them and giving them the life-saving gospel. Like, what better way to, if I have the opportunity, what better way to use my time in my life?
Right.
So that has been a joy to see. The Lord doesn't have to show me the fruit of that. He doesn't have to, but in some ways he has. So, and I pray that it would grow and I would continue being able to do that. And it's hard. I've never been to seminary, so it's been like a learning curve in a lot of ways. And I think it's still a learning curve for me.
Well, that's part of two questions I have for you.
Yeah.
and they're very similar. How do you feel like your time in the secular workplace prepared you for what you're doing now? But also speak a little bit to how your local church helped prepared you to do this now.
Good questions. Teaching is all about building relationships with people, especially when I went to high school. Like I taught middle school for years, and then I went to high school, and then I became an administrator. And after I left middle school, I was like, I'm never going back there. I did my time. So you could, in high school, you can kind of be more of your normal like self. I could be a little sarcastic with people, but I'm still setting my heart on them to love them.
Yeah,
So that was helpful to me. And then also just public speaking, and then also just like pacing a lesson out, which I still need to grow in. But and then in terms of management and admin, you have a lot of spinning plates and trying to keep all those spinning plates spinning. Even in ministry now, there's a lot of things that happen in ministry. Caleb likes to do a lot of things, which is great, and we like to do a lot of things at LBC. So just trying to keep a meeting. When I was running VBS, a lot of those skills were used.
sure.
Yeah, including teaching children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say your local church?
Yeah.
Were you saved in the church that there,
I
or
was saved at North Shore Baptist Church, which is the
okay,
church that planted Redeeming Grace Fellowship, which later became LBC
right?
or merged with LBC. But then I went out kind of in a similar situation where I was like 20 years old and very comfortable at my local church, was getting fed very well. Um, and a church plant that met in the basement that had like 35 people in it needed a music leader. And at that time I couldn't, stand and play guitar at the same time. I couldn't really sing and play guitar at the same time,
Hmm.
but they needed somebody. And I was part of a rotation there that was going there like once a month. And the Lord really gripped my heart and put in my heart. And the main thought that I kept thinking about was what's stopping you from going over there and being stretched out for me?
Hmm.
And so I called my girlfriend, which was my wife, and I was like, if I go, would you come with me? And she said, yeah.
Hmm.
And so we went there, and I was there for 16 years, just seeing how the Lord grew that ministry. And that church was Grace Baptist Church of Woodhaven, a very faithful, wonderful church. And about I learned about ecclesiology without having to take a course in seminary about ecclesiology. I learned about what a healthy church looks like, what a gracious, humble pastor looks like that just loves people and loves to teach the word of God. Not a lot of frills, like not a lot of programs. This is just what we commit ourselves to.
Right.
And I've over the years I developed like a love to disciple people there and grow close to people.
Hmm.
So that was like the best education I could receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Peter's a very passionate evangelist.
Yes.
He preached, I think it's been a couple of years ago now, at our pastors' fellowship about even just encouraging pastors to personal evangelism in their own life. And I still have implemented several things that he suggested during that time, practical stuff, but stuff that was born out of gospel implications, right? Like if you understand the significance of the gospel, you should want to share it with others.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
Yep.
What's some of the funnest or most enjoyable things about being a shepherd in the church?
Hmm.
I think a lot of times when pastors
Yeah.
talk, we talk about the challenges, and there are challenges certainly. But I think I agree with Richard Baxter when he says it in his own way that there's nothing more rewarding than ministering the gospel.
Yeah. I think just teaching and preaching is really fun. I look forward to it. It's hard and I lose sleep, but like I do think it's really enjoyable and fun. I think having so we live across the street from the church, and like back in the day, people would come over your house and they wouldn't call you ahead of time. And so sometimes people do that for us,
Yeah,
and I love that.
it's the
It's
best.
company. You have company. And so I've learned from you guys have the bunch lunch on Sundays, where you invite over too many people for your space. Yeah, we've
Well, it
got
started out with too many people
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
There's already too many people in there.
Yeah. And so we've like I came in here, all right, when I heard about that, I was like, all right, I want to take some people off your plate, no pun intended, and put them on my plate. And so having a lot of people over is so much fun to me. And it has become really fun to my wife as well,
Hmm.
even though it's work. It's just really enjoyable. That's fellowship. That's where I get to pour in people's lives. That's where people see the love of Christ on display.
Hmm.
You know, having a meal together, laughing a lot, and bringing the conversation to the things of God. So
Yeah.
that's so much to me. That's so much fun. Yeah, and then also like having flexibility with my own family schedule. So you know, we could stay up late with my kids. I get to have breakfast with them and do things like that. So the family aspects. I mean, even though preaching takes a lot of time and preparation for me, I'm just slow at it, and I need a lot of time and preparation. And uh, you know, by the time I left education, I was like, I had things kind of on in the groove. And so maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't, but I do think there's a lot more flexible time with my family. That's
Hmm.
great. Yeah.
Good. So imagine there's someone who is listening to this podcast and they're thinking about wanting to go into full-time ministry
Yeah.
because you went in at a different stage of life than a
Sure.
lot of people consider it.
Yeah.
After a year, if there's one thing that you could communicate to them, one thing that you could share with them, what would it be?
To trust the Lord, that if you have the opportunity to do it, to do it. Because like I said earlier, I think there's no better way to spend your life if you're qualified. If there's a need, which there is a need, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few.
Hmm.
It can be scary. It's hard. So a lot of times we'll be experiencing a situation in our church, and I'll think to myself, if I was Caleb, like what would I do? If I was the head pastor, what would I do? And that's a little scary sometimes.
Hmm.
Praise God for a plurality of elders
Right.
Mhm.
that you could rely on, and that you know you mutually encourage each other and depend on each other. Like if that wasn't the case, whew, I'd be shaking in my boots. But I've learned a lot from the wisdom of our other elders. So um, I would say Piper says risk is right
Hmm.
in most cases, and so take the risk and be link arms with other pastors. I mean, man, I love the network of pastors we have in our areas too. It helps me feel like we're not alone in this ministry on the island and in New York in general.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's one of the things that we talk about often on this podcast is just how wild it is to be part of what the Lord is doing in the network of churches here in this area. I've never seen anything like it or been able to be part of something like it. I've been part of fellowships and things that were good in the past. They weren't bad, but the like-mindedness and just the unity that we experience regularly, it's unheard of. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And the lack of competition. Like, I want you to do well.
right,
There's enough people here that there's plenty of gospel work for us to do that we could use more.
yeah,
And so why would I be jealous if
yeah,
the Lord blesses you with certain things? We were talking with someone recently who's visited our church. They visited your church. They were talking about going to Lynbrook. The problem that they're having is that everywhere they go, they're like, oh, yeah, you should go over there. That's a great church. And so they want to go to, we're like, well, which ones do you live? Which one's closer to you where you live?
yeah,
Oh, if you're in Lynbrook, don't drive all the way out here. Go see Keith.
yeah,
Just go there.
yeah,
And they don't know what to do with it because there's such a unity of like, yeah, man, Keith's probably better preaching than I am. You should go there.
yeah,
That'd be a good place for you.
yeah.
And they don't know what to do with it.
It's because the Lord built His church.
Hmm.
It's not the pressure is not on us completely,
Yeah.
and that's what I've realized too in this year. Not to fear in that way. Not to. I think Ed said it in one of his for worship events. Like, don't compete, don't compare, contribute to each other,
Hmm.
contribute to the good of other churches. You always say, I'm never upset when someone leaves our church to go to a good church,
Hmm.
and that I think expresses, without saying it, a great faith in the Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff.
One of the things I wanted to just ask you about is now that you're in ministry, there's so many hats you have to wear. It's not like you have a one single thing that is part of your job description. I remember putting together. I know that the office was like, okay, if we're going to hire an associate pastor, we need a job description. And I was like, what is everything that I could possibly put on this piece of paper, front and back, like every possible eventuality, just so I make clear, like, we need a lot of stuff. And that's one of the things that's unique about ministry is that uh, you do what people need, and you don't always know what that
Right.
is. So,
Right.
what are some thoughts you have on just what it looks like to have such a varied ministries, things that pop up last minute, surprises, unexpected things that you end up doing? What's that been like?
It's been, it happens, and it's for the gospel, and so I think I keep a couple of things in my mind. One is the job description that you talked about, and you're like, um, we need an emphasis on corporate prayer, which is something that we talked about in our staff meeting this morning.
Mm.
We need to, we need to put an emphasis and love our missionaries better. So, like, I went out to lunch with you and talked about how you guys do that, and we're organizing some trips to see our missionaries and to love them better this year.
Mm.
So, just going according to the book, according to the job description, but at the same time, I keep in the back of my head, all right, my role is like, a Samwise Gamgee, like, I'll like share the load, uh,
Mm.
and where I think I see you, um, maybe like, okay, he's got a lot on his plate. Where can I volunteer my time to do something else? Or, I know he would be best suited. Like, you asked me, hey, I love teaching equipping hour, which means I'll do the kids that week. Great, I'll do the kids another week. I think the day you called me was on the Friday VBS ended 2 years ago, and you're like, I want someone else to do this, so I could be freed up to do and I was like, yeah, I've never done VBS before, but I will do it.
Yeah, part of my reason in hiring you was because I never want to run Vacation Bible School ever again.
Yeah,
I love it. I just don't love leading it.
yeah. So I saw other churches do it well, and I visited those churches, and I looked at what they did well, and I thought ours went well by the grace of God. And it was,
Fantastic.
yeah, it was.
Even if it went bad, I think you would say that
Fantastic.
just because he didn't have to do it.
So good.
Best
It
I've
was so
ever
good.
seen.
Yeah,
So good.
From the sidelines.
So yeah, it's also just seeing where I could give you, some breathing room.
Well, I think one of the moments where we talked about it for a while, like, oh, this is what ministry kind of is like sometimes, was not long into your time at the church, maybe just a few weeks. We had a group that was coming up from North Carolina that had planned to come and visit us, and they were going to stay at the church, and they were going to be doing some missionary service for a couple of different churches. They were just kind of going to use our space as home base, and then they were going to help out a couple of the other churches here on the island. And I got a call from them on a Sunday after church saying, "Hey, we were going to fly up this afternoon, but we had a really bad hurricane down
Mm.
here. We're not going to be able to make it." And I was like, "Really?" And I started immediately while I'm on the phone, just looking up like what is going on here, and I'm seeing the entire towns being washed away. And they were like, we can't abandon what's going on here to come up to you guys right now." And so they were going to reroute their trip to go to the Asheville area and do some ministry out there. And so I was like, "Well, can we just join you?" And he was like, yeah, yeah, just I don't know what that would look like. If you can get here, we'll take care of it." So I called Dylan on a Sunday evening and I said, "Hey, Dylan, do you want to go to North Carolina with me to help out with this hurricane relief?" And he's like, yeah, I think so. I think that'd be great." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be at your house in like 45 minutes. If you want to go, just be ready. If not, just let me know, text me, and then if that doesn't work, but if you want to go, we'll be gone like a couple of days. I don't know what it's gonna be like. Just bring some good shoes and some socks and I don't know what else. And you were all for it. You jumped right in, and we talked on the way down. Like, yeah, it's not, you don't know when the hurricane is going to come,
Yeah.
literally or metaphorically in the church.
Right.
And there's just kind of a all hands on deck mentality that you
Well,
have.
like two things I really appreciate. One is just your vision for stuff like that. Like you want to go to Indonesia and teach a bunch of pastors. You want to go and help out. So I'm learning from you in that way, but I just appreciate your vision, your big picture vision for stuff like that. Like I want to jump in and help the kingdom in that way. And then also the other thing is I really appreciate my wife because I couldn't do that unless
Yeah.
she was ride or die. I mean, she is the one who said, "Okay, I'm whatever the Lord wants. I'll come and I'll move and I'll pick up and we'll all right, we have to pivot and shift. Yes, we'll do that." She, very affirming for me in ministry was her turning to me one day and saying, I think we made the right decision. By God's grace, he's helping me, he's ridding me of sin and selfishness.
Hmm.
And she's starting to teach Bible studies to women, and that's answered prayer for me for many years ago.
Yeah.
And so I praise God for her. God gave me a really great woman who he's growing and
Hmm.
moving in. So that to me, that was like, all right, if that's the only thing, then it would have been worth it.
Yeah. And your kids are still pretty young.
Yeah.
So how did they do with the transition?
They love it, man. They come visit me in the office just like an hour ago, bringing me yogurt and looking at my books. They love friendships in the church, which is really a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Like make your friends in the church. They yeah, they love this part of the neighborhood as well. So I wonder, like, you guys would be able to speak up to this more, but just being a pastor's kid, yeah, it's very new for them
Hmm.
as well. I wonder how they think of that.
Yeah. So I would say it this way. I was a music director's kid in some very unhealthy churches.
Hmm.
So my experience versus when I talk to my kids about it, who two of them are grown now, is night and day different than what they've experienced.
Hmm.
I struggled with bitterness for a while because of the way that I watched my parents get treated in many occasions. My kids don't have any of that. They have people in the church that they call aunt, uncle, and grandma and grandpa.
Hmm.
Not because that their grandparents or their aunts and uncles are not doing a good job, but because the relationship with them is so close that they see them as family. So my experience versus theirs, it's like completely opposite direction. But that was one of my big prayers, was like, Lord, let my children love the church and not be embittered at it.
Yeah.
Or have experiences that encourage them to not love the bride for which you died.
Hmm.
So mine love the church.
Hmm.
But a lot of that, again, I know we talked about our network of churches.
Good prayer.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, they have friends all throughout the network of churches. So they're getting to see, like, even this past weekend, I know you spoke at Lynn Brooks' young adult retreat. They're out there hanging out with friends from several different churches as this young adult retreat, and they're seeing healthy pastors from healthy churches that are all around the area. So it's not just us weirdos doing weird stuff over here. It's like, no, this is like what healthy church actually looks like.
Hmm.
So they get like this big, beautiful, broad experience of healthy church after healthy church, which is a beautiful thing.
Hmm.
What would you say, Caleb? Were your parents?
They were involved in the church, but they weren't pastors, leaders, that kind of thing. No, I think one of the things I appreciate is there was always such a stigma, I think, around like the PK thing, the pastor kid thing. When I was growing up, there were MKs and PKs, missionary kids and pastor kids, and there was like a higher expectation of them that was so palpable,
Hmm.
which maybe still exists, but I don't think that we've never tried to put excess pressure
Hmm.
on our kids to be like, oh, you can't do this because you're my son and I'm the pastor and you're making me look bad or whatever. we've always tried to just treat them as though they are just kids. And as far as I know, they haven't felt that added pressure, which I think is where a lot of the bitterness comes from too.
Yeah.
Is like when you become a pastor, like your family, they're part of it. They're involved, and sometimes when there's something uncomfortable happening in the church, they end up in the line of fire, and it's not their fault for being there, and it's not something that they would want, but sometimes they get dragged in unintentionally. And as much as possible, we try to shield them from that and to keep them unaware of anything like that. But one of the things I think that's really helpful about just having uh, the dynamic in a church where you have member meetings where congregationally you are separating the members that are adults from the children is that that's also a way that some of the harder things about church
Yeah.
are kept a little quieter,
Hmm.
and you're able to deal with those things in the midst of the congregation rather than bringing your kids right front and center to them. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the beauty of having a plurality of elders too. The heat doesn't fall on you alone and your family alone. And one of our elders, their kids are a little bit younger than ours. Well, they have a couple that are older than my youngest. And so they're very much in the same stage of life that we're in, dealing with kids and behavior issues and all that kind of stuff. So even my own elders are sympathetic to the parenting process and my children and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So even that has been super helpful. Again, what you're saying, like the blessing of having a plurality of elders comes in many different shades and colors.
And I think we want to be clear, like this doesn't mean we're lowering the standards for our own kids. It's that I'm saying I would have a high standard for you regardless of whether or not I was a pastor. Like my standard for you is I want you to honor your father and mother. I want you to operate in a way that you are living in the fear and admonition of the Lord. You're hearing the word, you're understanding
Right.
what it looks like to honor God in your conduct.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing, right? If they claim to be a Christian, the reason that we do what we do is for the sake of Christ, for his name, right? The way that we live says a lot about what Christ is actually like if we claim to be believers. So anytime I've tried to be very careful, like what you're saying, I'm not asking you to behave this way simply because I'm a pastor. I'm asking you to behave this way because the scriptures command it,
Hmm.
and out of love for Christ, you should want to live this way if you claim to know Christ. So it's more about the name of Christ and for his name's sake that we would do these things than it is any other reason.
Right. Behavior to make you look good
Yeah.
at church, right?
Yeah, because eventually it's going to come all crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like part of the issue is that if you're there, I've known pastors in the past who motivate their children to obey, to have a certain look, but there's going to reach a point where you can't control that anymore. And then when who they really are comes out, it's devastating. Or they rebel because they've been taught a distorted gospel, right?
Right.
It's legalism plus Jesus,
Right.
but that's not the gospel.
Yeah, I remember very formative for me was reading that book, Shepherding a Child's Heart by Tripp. And he talks about the difference between disciplining your children because you want them to behave well, because you want to look good to other parents,
Yeah.
especially as a pastor, compared to actually shepherding their hearts. Because you want to teach them about the gospel and honoring God
Yep.
and pleasing the Lord if you claim to be his.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just a kind of idolatry. Yep. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen, the constant movement. I'm being resorbed into the abyss of the darkness behind me. I keep bumping it with my head.
It's like a cool effect.
Yeah. Ripple effect.
Yeah.
Every time I speak, it's just
We don't need the those backgrounds that everybody else has in their videos. We've got our own version of moving background.
yeah, no green screen here.
No, it's just like a California king bed sheet.
I do have
Yeah.
a green screen.
Oh, well, so we could put like a cheese factory or something behind us.
Cheese factory. What's that in your brain?
Gotta have something back there.
Lunchtime.
A cheese factory?
Like the Cheesecake Factory?
Hey, I don't know that I've actually ever been there. Maybe I did go there once.
Their menu is massive.
It's like
Is it really?
It's huge. That tells me that you don't know how to do anything well.
If I don't go to,
and that
oh,
your
when
food
they have a massive menu.
and that your
Yeah.
food has been sitting there for a long time.
Yep. Yeah, it can't be fresh.
No.
No.
Yeah.
No, I love restaurants to do two things. One or two things.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you know it's got to be banging. If they only got like basically one or two things on the menu,
Yeah.
and they're still open, they've been open for years, you know it's incredible.
Mm.
Yep.
They better know how to do it if that's the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either that or it's like a shell corporation for the mafia or something like that.
Yeah.
And here we go back to Italian.
Yeah. That's funny.
Is there anything that uh you're looking for an associate right now? Um I was looking for an associate a year ago.
Yeah.
What are some things that like you're anticipating or expecting as you're pursuing having an associate pastor on staff? Um,
Yeah, Lord willing, sooner rather than later. Because I was looking at some emails recently because we've been looking for a couple of years,
mhm.
and actually had someone 2 years ago come and begin the candidating process, and it didn't work out. So it feels like it's been forever. Um, but two of the, well, obviously the top of the list is like, are they passionate about pursuing holiness? Right. These are like givens, I would hope. But the roles that we need right now for an associate is someone who's willing to patiently wade into things that are already existing, not come in like a bull in a china shop and just wreck things, but come in and help understand like what the needs actually are, and consider what it looks like to partner with the elders to accomplish that. Um, so it's interesting to consider like what an associate actually does, because I don't think hurricane disaster relief was ever in your job description. But in a very real way, it's like filling the gaps. I have a couple of dreams when it comes to like ministries I would like to see our church do. I would love it if they also have a desire to do that. Because I'm, as like the primary preacher and teacher, it's hard to do those other things, which right? When you're giving your time to all the preaching and teaching. But those are like the big things that we're looking for. Someone who's willing to learn and grow with us. I'm very leery of people who think they've got it all figured out and they're going to come in and show us the best way to do things. It's like, well, first of all, you don't even know this church. You might want to chill out a little bit. But yeah, someone with some good energy, uh, and doctrinal agreement. I mean, like some of this stuff I would think would just be normal at the top of the list. Do they love Jesus Christ? Um, are they easily entreated? Do they meet the qualifications of, because ultimately the goal is to have them be an elder at some point. Do they meet those elder qualifications? But though I would say those are the big things. I've seen some of the job descriptions that guys put out for associate pastor, and some of them are very interesting, what they put out, and the list of responsibilities that they give are not ones off that sometimes I would think our jobs an associate pastor would do. It's more of like a bookkeeper or something like that. But in some sense, you might have to do that too.
You have to have an administrator of some kind, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think one of the things that I've noticed is depending on where you're talking about, because I looked at a lot of those as well. Uh, Many of the churches were bigger. A lot of smaller churches aren't hiring an
Mm,
associate pastor. But when I say bigger, I don't mean just like the
mega
size of our
church.
churches. I
Yeah.
mean bigger as in they have 7 staff pastors and 11 different directors of ministries in their church on staff full time. And what I've noticed is a lot of times ministry is so siloed at churches where it isn't that they have a broad kind of ministry. It's a very narrow,
Hmm.
like, this is your job. This is the only thing you do.
Yeah.
Like, stay in your box. Don't do anything else. And I'm not a huge fan of that idea. I mean, I guess specialization can be valuable in some cases, but I would much rather the general ministerial work of somebody who can come in and just jump in with whatever is happening,
Yeah.
whatever's going on, be part of it, be involved in it, be engaged with it, and don't separate out
Yeah.
those things.
One of my concerns with having these silos is that you're almost creating an environment that's ripe for hired hands, right? They're not necessarily, they're not shepherds in the sense that they spend time with people. They just do a job and go home. And maybe, I don't know everybody that's out there. Maybe there are people who this is just their responsibility and this is all they do. And they love the people that they do it for and they're really caring for them. But sometimes when you try to get so specialized, it's like the professionalization of ministry is just like a strange thing. How do the shepherds not smell like the sheep at all? And
Yeah.
I think you've got to be careful with that.
I think one difference is you told me early on, like, that you wanted to hire somebody that one day would be ahead. And this is not just me doing a job here, but it's a training ground for ministry in the future,
Hmm.
which is hard because you don't want to, no one hires someone thinking, okay, well, we're going to send them out eventually. But that may be the case. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case with me, but if you're training the person to be a head pastor, you're going to train them in all the ways, and that's going to be the job description:
Yeah.
shepherd, to really spend time with the sheep,
Yep.
and to really teach them the word of God and
Yep.
really feed them. So
I think this is actually a good strategy going forward, of with missionaries or even with lead pastors. I mean, obviously, you guys have done it already. And by you guys, I mean North Shore. That's essentially the whole model that North Shore employs. But it's the one that we employed for our missionary as well. Because, like, as a pastor, if a missionary approaches me that wants to talk about support, but they're not connected to anybody, they have no ministry experience, maybe they have a seminary degree, I'm a little wary at first because they've not been tested at all. There's no proving ground. But when you have a missionary who's been in a church for 3 to 5, in our case, it was 7 to 10, there's like evidence that he's not a quitter. Like, he sticks it out and he's had a fruitful ministry in a particular place. And the church can wholeheartedly go, yeah, man, we want to keep him, but the Lord has this call in his life. So we're partnering with him to send him. He's been vetted. He meets the qualifications of an elder. We would love for him to stay, but we understand that our role is to send. So we're going to send him. Would you partner with him? That was a much different dynamic than some of the guys that I was friends with who came straight out of Bible college and tried to go straight to the mission field. They had a hard time raising support because they were simply just because they were unknown or they were very green. But someone who has a little dirt under their fingernails, people are more apt to put resources behind them because they're proven.
mm,
And so I think it's a really great model to think about giving away your best for the glory of God. That whatever the Lord would have us do, it doesn't belong to us anyways. So if he
right,
has us keep it, or if he has us give it away, or whatever happens,
right,
that's up to him and
mm,
what he chooses to do.
mm,
And it's hard. I mean, I cried many tears when we sent Matt and Trina because we were very close. And my kids were close with their kids. It's hard.
mm,
But there is a group of people that are going to hear the gospel, that the Lord could do it another way. But in all likelihood, they would not hear the gospel if our church wasn't willing to partner with them and send them. Same thing here. There are people on Long Island in this whole area that if we don't continually train up and send guys out, they have an opportunity to hear the gospel through social media or wherever, but they're not going to get the opportunity to be a part of a good, healthy local church unless we just automatically have that sending mindset that we want to just give it all away. It doesn't belong to us anyways. And it's exactly what you said. It's that mindset of I don't want riches here. I want to lay up treasures in heaven. And if that means that we send everyone somewhere else with all the resources that we have, then amen, right? If that's what the Lord would have us do. But I think that that starts at the mindset that we as pastors have of like, I'm not trying to hold on to anybody. I'm trying to get resources out for the sake of the gospel as quickly as I possibly can.
Mm.
Um, but, you know, and that doesn't mean we're not taking time to vet them and train them and all those things. But that almost has to be your mentality of like, we love them while they're here, but we're also going to do our very best to love them in sending them as well.
Mm.
So that's a different mentality than a vast majority of churches have. Because we're all trying to hold on. So many people are trying to hold on to people and resources. They're not even ours. They
Right.
don't belong to us.
Yeah, I think that's rooted in fear.
Hmm.
You're afraid that the Lord can't raise up someone else. But think about the end goal, the spreading of the gospel and the building of God's kingdom.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, worth it.
I dream about the boys in our church who are like, their parents are discipling them and they're learning leaps and bounds. Like one of them one day getting in the pulpit and just crushing it
Mm.
and it being clear, like,
Mm.
there's my replacement.
Mm.
It's time for me to go because he's way better than me. And he can take the church to the next level. And it's time for me to ride off into the sunset. Um, and we're trying to pour everything into parents and kids and doing that. And I know you guys are doing the same thing, right? But that's my dream of like one of these young boys that just falls in love with Jesus Christ and the Lord puts the fire in his belly to preach. And then we just invest resources in him and he takes my place. Or we send him with 50 people and X amount of dollars somewhere else where a church needs to be planted, right? That's the idea of what we're hoping to accomplish. And it's this, I know you guys are on the same track. But I can't wait for the day that as a network of churches, we do that. We have a group of people that comes together under the leadership of an elder that you guys have trained up, that we send resources with our people and that become constituted as a local church that plants somewhere in the area. I mean, like that just has implications for our long after we're dead and gone for the kingdom. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's cool stuff to
Very
consider.
cool.
You know, I think I've kind of changed my perspective a little bit over time on the missionary sending, where like when I grew up, I thought of it as you just send whoever's willing to go
Mm,
and you do it as quickly as you can without any training.
yeah,
And I'm an example of it because that's what I did. I moved to Brazil, no credentials, no study, no real idea what I was doing.
mm,
And I thought that was the right way to go. And then I have seen in much more recent years the exact opposite, the highly credentialed requirements, where some various church movements and missionary organizations have basically prioritized. We want somebody who's got 10 years of pastoral experience. We want like a really high quality. And what I've come to think about, the way I've come to think about it myself is kind of like this. Acts 13, Paul and Barnabas are sent out
mm,
and they are sent. There's several people that are prayed about,
yeah,
but those two were set apart by the Holy Spirit. They lay their hands on them and they send them out. They commission them to the field. And I would consider those guys, Paul and Barnabas, they were the heavy hitters. Those
yep,
were the credentialed guys,
yep,
and they were sent out. But there are people they picked up along the way, like Silas and Timothy, for example, were a little different. And they, as far as we know, it wasn't a commissioning like that. But Timothy, for example, or you could look at John Mark, who goes with them. John Mark is just the relative of Barnabas. So he shows up, he ends up on the trip. My guess is he's carrying the luggage, he's cooking the breakfast over the fire, he's doing the stuff that these old geezers don't have the muscle to do anymore. and they're bringing him along for the assistance, and we see that, for example, when he leaves, that Paul acknowledges it really hurt them. It harmed the ministry when he was gone.
Hmm.
But I view those as separate things, where you have a missionary who you do want to send your best, and you take guys that, if I would not make them a pastor in my church, I should not make them a pastor
That's right.
somewhere else.
That's right.
But at the same time, there are people who are in those younger stages of the ministry who can be a benefit
Yep.
just by going and serving. And what I've kind of thought about is our church, in the way that I've tried to think about hiring, especially, is that I don't know for sure if anybody's going to end up ever in full-time lead pastor ministry. But if I don't think they're ever going to be there, I won't hire them.
Hmm.
If I'm pretty convinced that they're not going to develop into that kind of a ministry, I would rather pour my time and energy into partnering and working alongside guys that I could begin to bring toward that ultimate goal and
Hmm.
fulfillment in ministry, so that, Lord willing, will continue to be a sending church over time, or, like you said, eventually one day one of these guys will just be my replacement.
Yeah.
Now, I hope that's a long way down the road, but if the Lord killed me right now, Dillon could take over. You know what I mean? And that's the hope of stability in that,
Yeah.
but also the hope of sending.
Don't die in Indonesia, please.
I have
Dude,
no
people get
plans.
weirded out when I say this, but I'm ready to be dead.
Yeah.
If we understand heaven, like, sure, I love my wife, and I love my kids, and I'd love to see them get married, and I love my church. But what are we talking about? Like, would I rather be face to face with Jesus, or would I rather hang out here? Sorry.
Yeah.
And
Well,
maybe
to
it's a little
live is
selfish.
Christ, and to die is gain.
Yeah, buddy. I'm ready.
I'm just gonna be happy with whatever the Lord gives me. If it's another 50 years, I'll take it. If it's not, it's 50 minutes, I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to be here close to 30 years. That's still a ways off.
You are how many years in right now?
14.
14 years in right now. Yeah.
25 would not be hard if the Lord wills and my health holds up. 30, I'm getting close to. I don't know. It's whatever. Well, I could be dead tomorrow.
I don't even know how to calculate it for myself, because do I start with the church plant, which was 10 years ago, or do I start with the merge, which is 4.5 years ago?
No, you start with the plant.
Well, we just celebrated your 10 years as a
lead
head,
pastor.
as a lead pastor. But even as we were celebrating that, I'm like, I hope he understands that we do know he was in 10 other years. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that's hard for me, because I've only been the lead pastor here for 5.
Yeah.
So my tenure here is 14, but I've only been lead pastor since COVID. So, but all of us, like, before that, it's not like we weren't a lead guy, but we were, I mean,
doing stuff.
We were
doing ministry,
church plants, and all kinds of stuff.
Music ministry for 16 years.
Yeah.
At a church plant. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it more of like the church time at the church, because then for you it would include the whole thing, which is what I would say.
Cool. I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gets me to that 30 number a lot faster.
Yeah, man.
Well, I hope to be there longer than that, if the Lord lets me live. Lets me do it, and I'd serve there until as long as the Lord lets me. It's my hope.
Yeah. There's so much benefit in staying somewhere for an extended amount of time. When you suffer well with your people, when they face hardship, you can speak to them in a different way, because they've seen you suffer. They know that, like, you have lived out before them the very thing that you're calling them to now, which is simply what the scriptures would call them to. But this is where, like, I don't remember if I heard Piper talk through it. It's in Colossians, where it talks about how that which was lacking in the sufferings of Christ is, in a sense, filled up by the suffering of his saints. And I think that's so
filling
true.
up the afflictions of Christ.
Yeah.
That is a puzzling statement, but I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that Christ's sacrifice was lacking,
No.
certainly.
But no.
But
He,
those who saw it,
yeah,
it's a limited number.
we get to
Sure.
display that affliction.
Yeah. 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 And there's something about like watching kids grow up and then getting the incredible privilege of like being part of their wedding, or
Mhm.
even like
Mm.
preaching the funerals of senior saints.
Mhm.
What a sad event, but also what a wonderful, like, joyous event of like they when someone puts in their request with their family when the end starts to come near, that they want you to officiate their funeral.
Honor.
What an honor.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Well,
Yeah, it's cool to think about like what the Lord allows us to do in the lives of people. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I know. I was doing a wedding earlier this year. I was part of a wedding for a young lady at our church, and was able to share a story about 17 years ago. We had an interaction when she was
Beautiful.
a conversation when she was a child, and gave an anecdote about uh, her life in 17 years. You know, you get to do a lot of ministry just by having life together for 17 years with that family.
Mm.
You know, by God's grace, if He allows people to stay there long term, I think that's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Love them while they're there, but let them go when it's time.
One of these times we'll have to talk about weddings and funerals. We'll have to do a podcast on weddings and funerals stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sermon preparation, you said, was the first one.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk about sermon prep stuff. Yeah. Let's talk about weddings and funerals. We got a lot of things
Yeah, that would be fun.
we could talk about.
All right. Well, let's call this one